Kyle, Kansas City Chiefs, Super Bowl champions. You can't really improve upon winning the whole thing. That's what you're there to do. But you have Patrick Mahomes, you have Travis Kelce, and you have Andy Reid, which is a successful formula for anybody, if anything. So, what do you think some top needs are for the Chiefs moving forward?
Well, when it comes to the Chiefs, it's kind of hard to pick some issues because they won the Super Bowl this year. So, all the teams that we've covered so far, they fell short. This was the goal that they were trying to get, and the Chiefs got the goal. They won the Super Bowl. And, going into this year, or going into this offseason, I should say, there are some things that they need to take care of. I think one of the things that they need to focus on is whether or not they're going to be able to retain Orlando Brown. He's one of their free agents this offseason. He's their starting left tackle. And if they're able to bring him back, if they're able to lock down that side of the offensive line, which would be Patrick's blind side, I mean, that would be critical. I mean, if you're able to lock down that side of the offensive line to be able to give him protection as far as giving protection for Pat, I think that's going to serve them pretty well. When it comes to their free agent list, it's not as extensive compared to some other teams. We just talked about the Philadelphia Eagles. And when you talk about the Eagles, they have a large portion of their defense that is going to be potentially on the move this offseason. When it comes to the Chiefs, when it comes to some bigger name players, a lot of these guys were either on 1-year deals or are like third or fourth on the depth chart when it comes to their respective positions on the field. I mean, there's some other free agents that I could list off here. You got McCole Hardman, who's been around for a couple of years. You've got Jerick McKinnon. You've got Juju Smith-Schuster. You've got Ronald Jones. Like, I could also throw one more in there in Carlos Dunlap. There are some bigger name players. If you're a Chiefs fan, you probably think that these are going to be some big guys to retain. I talked about Orlando Brown. He's somebody that I think that they should probably try to resign. I think the same thing should be applied to Jerick McKinnon, because when it came to Jerick McKinnon's total effectiveness this year, Kev, there were points in time where Pat was looking at him constantly throughout games, and I think there was a 5 or 6 game stretch in a row where he brought in a touchdown, if not more. I remember there was a certain stretch of the season where he was a really hot commodity in fantasy, and no wonder, because Pat would just throw it to him on the check down. And Jerick McKinnon is definitely one of the more athletic running backs that we have in the NFL currently. So if you're looking to round out that running back core, look, they have Isaiah Pacheco, who's probably going to be their main down back for probably the next couple of years as far as I see it. But you're going to need a consistent third down back, and I think that Jerick McKinnon's going to fill that spot quite nicely. And when it comes to the Chiefs, though, defensively, they are still a little bit weak. When it came to the Super Bowl, they gave up 35 points. Now, granted, they were going up against a good offense in the Eagles. I'll give the Eagles their credit there. But in a Super Bowl, the defense is going to have to be able to step up, and more than likely, there's going to be some adjustments that are going to need to be made. They don't need to really focus on the pass rush because Frank Clark and Chris Jones, they're able to bring effective pass rushes. Now, Frank Clark does have, I think he has a player option this year. He could potentially opt out of his contract. Now, if he were to opt in, he would stick around for another year. He signed a 2-year deal last season. So if he were to play out this year of his contract, he would be a free agent next season. But that's going to be something that we're going to have to monitor for the next couple of weeks, because he could potentially be looking to maximize his value and get a longer term deal, especially coming off the Super Bowl. He could definitely take advantage of it as far as I see it. But overall, when it comes to the Chiefs, they won the Super Bowl. There's going to be some things that they need to attend to. I think a lot of these issues that they're going to attend to are mostly predicated farther down the depth chart, not the primary starters at each respective position. But overall, if I had to say some issues that they need to attend to when it came to their starters, it would be on the defensive side of the ball. And like I said, giving up 35 points in the Super Bowl kind of indicates that. And going into next year, they're still going to be the top dog in the AFC as far as I see it. Somebody's going to have to knock them off of that perch. And honestly, I'm not really going to bet against Pat and Andy Reid. I think they have a very good chance to end up in a similar position as they did this past season. And it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they end up back in another Super Bowl going into next year.
So then Kyle covered the defense. I'll just dive right into the offense. I think that the Chiefs, obviously, outside of their left tackle, like Kyle had also mentioned with Orlando Brown, you got to figure out what you're doing at the wide receiver position. Because obviously, other than Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Juju Smith-Schuster was on a 1-year deal. McCole Hardman is gone, and then obviously you look at the running backs. Isaiah Pacheco's a rookie, but McKinnon is probably going to be gone. Obviously, at that point, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who was their starter, drafted out of LSU a few years ago, who has plummeted down the depth chart. He is more than likely going to end up being a free agent as well if he's not released. So it's like, yes, you have Patrick Mahomes. Yes, you absolutely have Travis Kelce. Yes, you have a solid offensive line in front of you and a potentially good running back, but he did best in a system where he was kind of splitting carries with McKinnon. I would probably say they really need to focus on either bringing Juju back, targeting a free agent wide receiver, or even drafting somebody. I know they have Sky Moore, but he isn't someone that's going to be consistent playing the X or the Y on the outside. He's more of a slot receiver / somebody who's going to be more known for trickery, like Kadarius Toney. They have a lot of options with those two players who are used a lot in motions and jet sweeps, and like I said, kind of slot drags across the field, but nobody that's going to go out there and become a Tyreek Hill for you. No one that's out there is going to demand a double coverage or demand a double team, should I say. So Kyle focused on, obviously, like he said, Frank Clark and a couple of other pieces on the defensive side. You got to kind of improve. But when it comes to the offense, Pat needs targets. Pat needs someone to throw to. Pat needs someone he can hand it off to and rely on. So if you had to kind of pin it, left tackle for me is a priority. Figure out what you're doing with Orlando Brown, whether you have to tag him again or figure out a contract extension. That's pivotal. Quarterback's blind side is huge. Got to find some wide receiver depth. And then, of course, you got to figure out what you're doing with the running backs, because if Pacheco's the only running back on this system, on this staff, he's going to get burnt out really quick. And I don't know if he's a first, second, and third down back to carry the shoulder or carry the load on his shoulders for the Kansas City Chiefs moving forward.